Hello Lightning Biologists, this is the Monohybrid tutorial where I will walk you through the problems to hopefully get you started on some of them, and then once you get this figured out, it will be smooth sailing there forward. So let's get started with question number 1, and I'm going to break it down to show you how I go through them. Question number 1. Question number 1 says that in peas, so what Mendel was using, the allele for round peas, we use the capital R because it is dominant, to the wrinkled pea, which would be the recessive allele. And so I like to stop right there and make myself a key. And so I'm going to make myself a key. So in this key, we are talking about the phenotype round versus wrinkled. And we know something already. We know that the round phenotype is dominant, and so we're going to use the R. So a genotype for round could be homozygous dominant, or it could also be the heterozygous. And then the wrinkled genotype, because it is recessive, it has to be homozygous recessive. And so if you go up here, I'll just add to this key. I wouldn't do this on my paper. I would just write what I have so far. But over here I have the phenotype. And then on this side I have written the genotype. And now I always have something to go back to. And so that's how I always like to start my problems. The next thing then I'm going to be looking for is, well, what are the parents and what is the cross? And so it goes on to say, what offspring would you expect if you crossed a heterozygous? And so here it's really important that you know the vocabulary. So a heterozygous, hetero is not the same, and so heterozygous would be a parent that has two alleles that are not the same, and so it would be a big R with a little r, because those are two different alleles. And we know that it would be round. And this heterozygous round parent is going to be crossed, we use a little x, crossed with a wrinkled. And I go back up to my key. I don't have to think about it. I know that wrinkled is little r, because it is the recessive. And so now I have my key and I have my cross written down to the side. Now I can figure out the problem, because the problem is asking, what offspring would you expect if you cross the heterozygous with the wrinkled pea? And so now I go into my Punnett square. And I'm going to start with this parent here. And I look at the parent and I think, okay, what alleles could that parent give to the offspring? Well, it can only give a little r or a little r. And so I now can start my Punnett square. So this parent is going to go right here and here. And the other parent is going to go on the other side of the Punnett square. And this parent can either provide a dominant R, or it's going to give a little r, kind of like a coin. You could flip it, you get the dominant. You flip it, you could get the recessive, heads or tails. Now I just have to filter in my Punnett square. And so how I do that is I just move things across the Punnett square. So for example, this R will come over here and I'm going to fill it in big R. This little r will come down and I'll fill it in little r. This r will come over, have little r. This r comes down, I have little r. I do it again. The big R comes over here. I have big R, my little r comes down, and again, this little r is coming over, and this little r is coming down. And so I just filter in the types of alleles. And so, for example, if this is the sex cell, and this is the sex cell of the other parent, then this will be the offspring, and that will be a heterozygous. So now I can go back to my question and look at what it's really asking, because I have all the answers. And the question is asking, what offspring would you expect? So now I'm wanting to know what's the genotype ratio. So the genotype are the types of genes. And if you look in your Punnett square, so if I'm looking in my Punnett square right now, I'm going to look right in here, and I know that I could get a big R and a little r. Matter of fact, I'm going to get 2 of those, right? So I'm going to have 2 of those. And I also am going to get little r, and for every 2 heterozygous, I'm going to get 2 homozygous recessive. And so 2 to 2 could be reduced to a 1 to 1. So for every heterozygous, I'm going to get 1 homozygous recessive. And so that I will write right here. For every 1 heterozygous, I'm going to get 1 homozygous recessive. The phenotype then is asking, what's the physical trait going to look like? So then I just go back and I go, well, the dominant is going to be round. So for every 2 round I get, I'm going to get 2 wrinkled. And so again, I have a 1-to-1 probability, a 1-to-1 ratio of getting a round to wrinkled. And so I just write that in, 1 round for every 1 wrinkled. And that's the answer. That's all that you need to do for that problem. So let's go on to question 2. So question 2, and I'm going to go ahead and erase what I have so far, because I'll redo this for every problem. So question 2 now says, in fruit flies, long wings is dominant to short wings. So now I know my key. So I'm going to make my key. Long is the phenotype, and I know it has to have a big L. Doesn't really matter what that other one is, so I sometimes just put a little dash there to know it could be a big L, it could be a little L. And then short wings, so wing is our trait. The short phenotype is recessive, and so it's little l, because that's the only way you can get the recessive phenotype. So what it's asking now, this one's a little different. This one's saying that 2 long-winged flies. So now I'm going to have my cross, but I don't know what the genotype of my cross is. But it's saying that 2 long-winged. So I know that they have to have at least a big L. I don't know what this one is. And I know that this parent has to have a big L also because they're both long wings. When they produce offspring, so they produce offspring, so now I have my Punnett square, right? I know that 49, and let's just round it. I know that 50 of them are short wing and 150 of them are long wing. So there's 3/4 of them are going to be long wings. So 3 of these 4 boxes are going to have a big L in them. But here's the thing. 1/4 of them are short wing. And so that means that these parents had to be able to each give a little or a recessive L for wing length. And so if each parent was able to actually give and create these short wings, because these guys have short wings, 1/4 of them, 49 of the 200, so 50 of the 200 approximately have short wings. And so when you go back to these parents and you think, okay, so this big L could go here, but this has to be a lowercase l because they have offspring that carry the homozygous recessive. Again, here I can put the big L from this parent right here, but then this one has to be the lowercase because, again, both parents were able to pass. And so then I can go back to the parents, and I know that both parents are heterozygous for wings. What proportion of the long wing offspring should be heterozygous? So now it's asking about the offspring, okay? So it's asking about the offspring. If I go through and fill in what proportion of the long wing, so these are out because they're short wing. So what proportion of the long wing should be heterozygous? Well, of the 3 boxes, so 1, 2, 3, these guys are heterozygous and these guys are heterozygous. And so 2 of 3 of the 2/3 of the long wings are going to be heterozygous for wings. All right, moving on to the next question. We'll scroll up here. Question number 3. Question number 3, a tall hybrid. Ooh, what's hybrid? A hybrid. That's a word you might have to go look up. Hybrid is the same thing as a heterozygous. So heterozygous means that it doesn't have the same allele. It has one dominant, one recessive. So a tall hybrid pea plant. So tall. So you know right now, you know what's dominant. If a heterozygous is tall, then tall has to be the dominant. So I'm going to make my key. There will be tall, and we know that that's dominant. And there will be short, and we know that has to be homozygous recessive. In this one, we're going to cross. We're going to cross a heterozygous, and we're going to cross them to a pure. So a pure, that's another newer word. A pure means homozygous. Meaning it only has one thing to give. And so this would be big T, big T. According to Mendelian principle, how many of the 18, so now we're dealing with a number, how many of the 18 offspring may be expected to be the following? So I'm going to go ahead and do a Punnett square just because it makes it easy. I will have the answer there. So I know the one parent can give a big T or a little t. The other parent's going to give big T, big T. And so my offspring are going to be big T, big T, big T, big T, big T, little t, big T, little t. So now I can see really easily what is the probability that I'm going to get a pure tall. So a pure tall has big T, big T. So I come down here and I say, okay, this one's pure tall, this one's pure tall. And that's 2 of my 4. So 2 of 4 or 1/2. And so 1/2 is going to be pure tall. But you know what? I'm not asking for the percentage. I'm actually asking about the number out of 18. And so 1/2 here, if my pen has kind of died on me. Okay, so 1/2 of 18 is going to equal 9. So 9 of them are pure tall. Dwarf, little t, I don't have any. And so 0 are going to be dwarf. And if I come back down here and I'll change my color up, I have 1, 2. So it's the same. 2 of 4 are heterozygous or 1/2. And I know 1/2 of 18 is 9. And so 9 of my 18 will also be a hybrid tall or heterozygous. That is it for this video. I will go through the rest of the questions on the next video.